Hi there, it's Matt here, and welcome back to the podcast, and welcome back to another AMA Ask Me Anything episode. I am, as always, joined by the spectacular, the splendid, the scintillating Dr. Etty Ben-Simone. Etty, welcome back.
Hi, everyone.
So, it seems as though we've got a collection of fascinating and some of them desperately peculiar questions.
Yes, we have a good list today.
I'm not going to point fingers at the people who sent those ones in, but I love peculiar, considering that's essentially, if you look it up, I am the poster child for exactly that term. Anyway, let us crash on. Let us start with the first question.
You know, when you think about it, sleep is peculiar. So there are no wrong questions here.
It is a bit bloody odd, isn't it?
It is.
I think we've often spoken about it, which is, it seems like a disaster. What a mistake that you design a system where you're not reproducing, you're not finding a mate, you're not foraging for food, you're not caring for your young. And worst of all, you are vulnerable to predation. On any one of those grounds, sleep should have been strongly selected against in the course of evolution.
Yeah, at some point your muscles are not working. You're not even there.
No. And in terms of humans, worse still, there are times when you start to become completely psychotic and delusional. You start to see things which are not there. You start to believe things that couldn't possibly be true. You have these wild emotional swings. And then you wake up and you're forgetting most, if not all, of that experience. What on earth is going on?
Exactly. That's why we're doing what we're doing. It's just so fascinating.
But the thing is that sleep, it seems to have emerged very, very early on in evolution. And in fact, I've tried to suggest an alternative view of that, which is, why do we think sleep evolved? Why don't we think that wakefulness evolved? And it was from the sleeping state, which was the default of life on the planet, that wakefulness came to being. Why did we always think it was wakefulness first? And then at some point, sleep evolved atop of wakefulness. All of which is to say that if it emerged early on, which we think that it very much did, looking across phylogeny as a time capsule evolutionarily, looking at very ancient organisms like earthworms, for example, they seem to have sleep periods very definitively. So in other words, it seems so idiotic, it seems so bizarre, it seems so AKA peculiar, yet it seems to have emerged with life itself on this planet. And then it's fought its way through heroically every step along the evolutionary path. If it doesn't serve a collection, a kaleidoscope of absolutely essential biological and psychological functions, then, as I think Alan Rechtschaffen said, it's got to be the biggest mistake the evolutionary process has ever made. And as we will speak about in this and many other episodes, Mother Nature has not made a spectacular blunder in creating this thing called sleep from everything that we've learned so far.
I'm nodding vigorously here.
Should we start the questions?
Okay, let's start the questions then. Thank you for your interest, everyone, in sleep. As you can see, we are very interested in it. The first question is, how can I fall asleep faster?
Great question. And I suspect it's coming from a place of, I'm struggling to fall asleep rather than just, I'd like to fall asleep faster, but for the most part, it's not a problem for me. I should define, by the way, what good falling asleep is and not good falling asleep is. As a rule of thumb, and it's just a rule of thumb, not a hard and fast rule, if you're taking about 30 minutes or more, 30, to fall asleep, usually we would prefer you not to be spending that amount of time in bed awake. And so we would like to see you falling asleep sooner than 30 minutes. However, it's not that faster is always better. If you are falling asleep within seconds of your head hitting the pillow, that can be fine and healthy, but also sometimes it's a sign that you are sleep deprived or you are carrying a consistent sleep debt and you are so hungry for sleep that you fall asleep in a disproportionately quick manner relative to other healthy sleepers. So we always like to keep an eye out. That's why some of these sleep trackers, they will say, your sleep latency, meaning the time it took you to fall asleep, was 2 minutes. And it gives you a red warning signal. And you think, well, hang on a second, isn't that good? It only took me 2 minutes. And they're saying no, because they also know that falling asleep too quickly can be a sign that you are underslept. So I'm going to assume for a second that someone is asking, how can I fall asleep faster? Because they're struggling with sleep. There are, a number of things in the toolbox that you can try. The first thing, relaxation techniques. We are seeing this epidemic of the tired but wired phenomenon. People are so tired, but they're so wired, they can't fall asleep. You need to relax. How do you do that? You can start by doing breathing exercises where you can take a deep inhalation through your nose. You can retain that breath for a count of 5, and then you can slowly release that breath, exhaling again through your nose or your mouth. And just repeat that over and over again. Try to do that for maybe a minute, maybe 2 minutes. 2 minutes is actually quite long to do that, but it will really push the nervous system over into a state of quiescence rather than that fight or flight branch. The next thing I would recommend is when people say, it takes me at least 25, 35 minutes to fall asleep. I'll say, well, how do you know that? And they say, well, I'm just looking at the clock. Well, that's the next mistake. Avoid looking at the clock. Remove all clock faces from your line of sight. Clock watching will only increase stress and anxiety about not falling asleep faster, and it will make it harder to get to sleep initially. So instead, don't be worrying about the time or the clock time or checking the time. Just focus on something relaxing and doing those deep inhalation exercises. Next, you can always try mindfulness meditation. I have to say, I didn't believe the data. I thought it was all a bit woo-woo when I was reading and investigating this. And sure enough, meditation just has this really great effect on speeding up the time it takes to fall asleep. So I started trying it, and that was about 7 or 8 years ago. And now I meditate consistently using an app for 10 minutes before bed. And I just start the app, and then I place my phone in a location. And by the way, the phone is a phone that is not connected to my email or my text messages. It's a completely inert phone, and it only has the signal for the app. And then I put the phone near my pillow. I listen. I'm guided by the meditation, and that's it. I don't pick up the phone again. So mindfulness meditation can be a fantastic way to help quiet a racing mind and focus on the present moment. The reason that that's important is the following. If you are struggling to fall asleep, one of the things that is happening is that you cannot get your mind off itself.
Mm-hmm.
So you start to ruminate, you start to catastrophize, and then bad things happen because everything is twice as bad in the dark of night than it is in the light of day, and you just get stressed. Meditation gets your mind off your own anxiety thoughts, and when you do that, it's a little bit like trying to remember someone's name in this regard. The harder that you try for sleep, the further you push it away. And the moment when you take your mind off trying to recall the memory, all of a sudden sleep arrives back to you. The next thing that you remember is the alarm going off in the morning because you got your mind off itself. If meditation is not for you, you can try reading. A lot of people use reading in the evening as a soporific tool to help them fall asleep. That's perfectly fine. Another thing that one of our colleagues here at UC Berkeley discovered, Dr. Alison Harvey, was taking yourself on a mental walk. So if you're struggling to fall asleep, start this practice. Think about a walk that you take and you know it really well. You know it in exquisite detail. And then what I want you to do is close your eyes and then start to go through the details of the walk. So for me, let's say I'm going to go and walk the dog. Okay, I'm going to get the brown colored leash out. I'm going to clip his collar on. I'm going to clip him into the leash. I'll pop the garage door. The garage door is opening. I take a left down the street. I look across at that strange house with the really odd, quirky design. And then I start to walk up the hill and oh my goodness, there's this classic car on the left-hand side that I'll always take a look at and have envy of. It's that level of detail What does that do? Gets your mind off itself. Maybe three other things to consider. Firstly, if you are struggling with sleep, just be mindful of how much caffeine you're taking in. And also just be careful of really heavy meals before going to sleep. Some of those can obviously interfere with your ability to initially fall asleep. If you want to consider a more aggressive approach, you can seek out cognitive behavioral therapy for insomnia, or CBTI. I've done lots of episodes on that, a multi-part episode on that. Within that, there is a tool that is perhaps one of the most effective aspects of cognitive behavioral therapy that someone could try in the extreme, which is that if you are just consistently not being able to fall asleep, or you are falling asleep, but you wake up in the middle of the night and you're always awake for an hour, hour and a half, you just can't get back to sleep. The following tool can be useful, but you have to do it with some supervision. And it is called sleep restriction therapy, or bedtime restructuring. And what happens is the following. You say, normally I go to bed at 11 and I get out of bed at 7. So I'm in bed for 8 hours. Well, now if I, Matthew, am struggling with my sleep, I am going to not go to bed at 11. I'm going to push my bedtime until 12:30 a.m., an hour and a half later, but I'm still going to wake up at 7. And I'm going to start doing that night after night after night. By spending less time in bed, I can start to build up more and more sleep pressure, or sleepiness in my brain and body. And after about 3 or 4 nights of this bedtime restriction, I will have built up such a hunger and appetite. My brain will be now so desperate for sleep that finally by night 4, the previous nights I was still struggling. I was still waking up, still spent an hour. But if you trust in the process, by about night 4, all of a sudden I get into bed, I close my eyes, I fall asleep quickly, and then I wake up by the alarm at 7. And it's the first time that I've ever slept consistently throughout the night. Why? Because I'm limiting my time in bed. And what that means is that overall, you end up actually getting more total sleep as a consequence. And the efficiency of your sleep, meaning the amount of time that you spend asleep relative to the amount of time that you're in bed, is very, very high. Maybe it's 95% of that time, because you fall asleep and you stay asleep. Before, with your problems and your struggles, you were unfortunately spending maybe 2 hours awake at night, and that's miserable. So you could do that, sleep restriction, but you've got to be careful because you will be quite sleepy during some of those first days before you start sleeping better. Be mindful of driving, operating machinery. Again, this is a scientific podcast. It's descriptive. It's not medically prescriptive. And then finally, on that same tune, you can also think about medications. It's not right for me to ignore medications, even if I think cognitive behavioral therapy for insomnia is the best first line approach. There are new drugs out there, and I'll do an episode on these called the DORAs drugs, DORA, small s. And those drugs can be helpful to help you fall asleep or stay asleep. It's a new class of sleep medication. It's very different how it works relative to things like Ambien. And then if you are having problems staying asleep, there's another medication called doxepin, and that has also been proven to be helpful at around about, I think it's 6-7 milligrams for sleep maintenance insomnia rather than sleep onset insomnia. My goodness, that was a long answer. Etty, add anything that you would like. Thoughts, questions?
That's such a great journey into sleep, and it's a good start. I wanted to just say that a lot of what you said, I think, is relevant for waking up in the middle of the night and wanting to go back to sleep, right?
It is. Yeah, I think all of this would probably apply to both trying to fall asleep, but also trying to stay asleep.
Yeah, and I would recommend that a lot of the techniques, like if you're trying to take on the breathing techniques or meditation, start off during the day. So when you're awake, and kind of feel it out and practice with it and play with it. So when you want to use it at night, you have a greater sense of familiarity with it. I think that helped me.
That's a great, I think, statement, which is just test drive,
Yeah,
explore.
exactly.
Sometimes doing the test driving and the exploration at the moment when you first need the intervention may not necessarily be the optimal time to start test driving.
And I would want you to give up on it. And you didn't mention counting sheep. Is that because it's not working well?
What do you think? I think we both read the study.
We both read the study, and it actually did not make sleep come any faster, right?
No, it didn't. I think if anything, it made people either no different or, if anything, in fact, have a harder time falling asleep. But instead, what was much more effective was the mental walk approach. That seems to be a much better solution.
Yeah, I always think of sleep as that little rabbit that is a bit scared, and you don't want to kind of shine a light at its face because it will run away. And when we are kind of ruminating and thinking about our task and the things we have to do tomorrow, that's the bright light in the rabbit's eyes, and it's just frozen. It can't come to you. And until you start thinking about something else and you kind of give it time, and then sleep approaches, and off you go.
It's so funny because sleep can be, when you're anxious, so timid in its ability to approach you. You're absolutely right. It's a great metaphor, poster child for that anxious state that we're in. Yeah. A sponsor of today's podcast is BetterHelp. As someone who has dedicated several decades now looking at the relationship between sleep and mental health, I know scientifically taking care of your mind is just as crucial as taking care of your body. It's the foundation of everything that we do with our minds, not to mention that your sleep health and your mental health are so powerfully intertwined. You can't have one without the other. Therapy can be an incredibly powerful way to support that foundation of mental health. This is where BetterHelp comes into play. I see it for anyone who wants to grow or learn and really just become the best version of their mental health selves. If you have been considering therapy, BetterHelp offers a flexible, convenient way to start. It's entirely online. You can fit it into your schedule no matter how busy you are. All you need to do, fill out a questionnaire, and you'll be matched with a licensed therapist who is right for you. You can switch therapists at any time without any additional charge. I think that's really important too. It's all about finding the right connection with your therapist. Please visit betterhelp.com/Matt Walker. And you will get 10% off your first month. Thanks again to BetterHelp for supporting this podcast and the sleep education mission that we are on. I'm really proud to support them. I think mental health and therapy is just an incredibly powerful, underutilized tool. So again, betterhelp.com/Matt Walker. Okay, next question.
This is slightly related, and I love that people are asking questions about improving their sleep. It's wonderful because sometimes the work that we do is about convincing people that sleep is important. But when people ask these questions, you feel like they already know, and now they just want to get more of it. So I love these questions. The second one is, how can I stop waking up in the middle of the night? Kind of
well,
related.
thankfully, yeah, exactly. I think we've essentially covered almost everything that we described for the first question of how do I fall asleep faster is going to apply here. So I would say for answer number 2, see answer number 1. I would probably say a few additional things though. Something I didn't mention that applies to both is regularity. Just maintaining a regular sleep schedule by going to bed and waking up at the same time every day. Do not underestimate how it reinforces your body's natural sleep-wake cycle. We often think, okay, what supplements can I do? Or there was this new kind of thing that I saw on an influencer's channel, this new medication, 5-TP, XYAMZ. If you are focusing on those things to correct your sleep, you're going to be majoring in the minors and minoring in the majors. And what I mean by that is you're focusing on the things that could move the needle 1% or 2. Whereas if you just focus on minimizing your caffeine intake, getting your stress correct, minimizing your light in the evening, something I didn't mention before, keeping a really regular sleep schedule, limiting your fluid intake before bed, being mindful of your alcohol before bed. Those things by themselves, if you were to do all of them systematically, faithfully every night, they will get you so much further along the runway of better sleep than racing to the natural health food store and picking up a whole collection of rattling pills and boxes. So I would say those would be the additional things for sleep maintenance issues or sleep onset issues, which is address your stress management techniques, make sure that you dial down half of the lights in your house in the last hour before bed, make your bedroom cool, dark, as I said, quiet. You can use earplugs, you can use noise machines if you want. Get absolutely regular. Avoid heavy meals before bed. Limit your caffeine, and then think about limiting your alcohol before bed. Do all of those things, you will be in great shape.
Absolutely. I'll just mention, as someone who is sensitive to caffeine, that sometimes dark chocolate, which I really love, or green tea, they have some caffeine in them. And if they're too close to bed, you can feel the arousal picking up, and you might feel that has an impact on you too. So you can examine that as well.
Great point. Yep. And of course, there are some genetic tests out there if you really want to get nerdy about whether you've got the variation in your gene that relates to caffeine sensitivity. But overall, I would just say you probably know yourself how
Yeah,
caffeine sensitive you are or not.
it's easy to tell.
It's easy to tell. And also with all of these things, we're just suggesting do the experiment. Give me this grace for 1 week, people listening. Do as the suggestion prescription, which is regularity for a week, darkness in the last hour before bed. In fact, try to do a digital detox too. Try to stay off your communications, emails, text, social media in the last at least 30 minutes, if not hour before bed. Get regular, watch your caffeine, watch your alcohol, and find some way to de-stress, some way to manage your stress, to relax before bed. If you just try it for a week, and if none of that works, send us an email and say none of it worked, or send us a message on social media, none of it worked, give me some additional tips, and we can. But for 95+% of people, if you do that experiment, you will probably notice by the end of the week, wow, I'm having some of the best sleep I have ever had in my life.
Yeah, and it's going to feel great.
Next question.
Next question. Is it normal to wake up tired? Please say yes.
Yes and no. In other words, it's complicated. Let me unpack.
It's complicated.
Hashtag life in general. Waking up tired is perfectly normal in the sense that we have something called sleep inertia. When most of us, unless we are an extreme morning type, your chronotype, most of us, if we're kind of a neutral or an evening type, will wake up and will be a little bit like a classic car engine, where you just need maybe half an hour, 45 minutes just to get up to operating temperature before you can really start to row through the gears of being alert and awake and affable and amenable and emotionally kind and balanced and empathetically sensitive and,
Nice
with all of your
person overall.
cognitive, basically just a normal human being. It just takes that time. And that is perfectly normal. However, if you are feeling that to begin with, and then you are struggling to maintain your alertness throughout the day, that's probably a warning sign that you're struggling with sleep in one of at least two areas. Either one, you're not getting what we call restorative sleep. And restorative sleep we will define as not feeling restored and refreshed by your sleep during the day, and therefore you can't maintain the adequate wakefulness that you wish for. So if you were to say, could I function 2 hours after I wake up without needing coffee and I could be alert and I wouldn't be sleepy, then I would say, sounds like you're having good, refreshed sleep. But if you are really struggling, then that's not necessarily a good sign either. The reasons for that type of unrestorative sleep can either be insomnia, that you're not getting the sleep that you need at night. It can be a sleep disorder, such as sleep apnea, and we've done episodes on that. Another sleep disorder, for example, like restless leg syndrome, sometimes you're not aware that you're awake by way of these disorders. And so you don't think, well, I was awake all night. You just think, well, I slept, but I don't feel restored or satiated by my sleep. That's usually a sign that it's not normal to wake up tired and remain tired throughout the day. So I would say overall, waking up tired is probably perfectly normal, especially if you are a chronotype that is either a normal, like me, or a bit more of a night owl, like Etty. That's completely fine. If it kind of goes away after about an hour or an hour and a half, then no harm, no foul. If that tiredness is sticking around throughout the entirety of the day, then it's time to go see someone and see if you can explore what's going on with your sleep to leave you so unrestored throughout the entire day. Does that make any sense, Etty?
So, one more thing perhaps to add is that there is a chance you're not getting as much sleep as you actually need. Perhaps you need to wake up early every day and you use an alarm. And if you're dragging on tired throughout the day, perhaps you need more sleep. And one of the ways you can test that is when you're on vacation, perhaps, and you don't need to use an alarm, you can see whether you're feeling better during the day and how much sleep are you getting, how much more sleep are you getting. And if it's a weekday, you can try and advance your sleep by half an hour and maybe give yourself 15 minutes more sleep in the morning. So getting overall 45 minutes more sleep. And you can see how these changes are affecting your sleepiness throughout the day. I think overall, maybe you agree with me, Matt. I don't think we are the best judges of how alert we really are during the day. What do you think?
I think it's pretty clear that it's almost a yes and a no answer again here too, which is for the most part, if you are not feeling restored by your sleep throughout the day, that usually means it's quite extreme because for you subjectively to sense it, it has to be pretty bad. The danger of it is also if you're going throughout the day and just thinking, well, this is just me at this age in my life. This is just the degree of energy that I have. I'm kind of running at what feels like 50% battery now relative to 5 years ago or 10 years ago. And you just accept it. But what you don't realize is that, in fact, your subjective sense of your state of sleep restoration is actually usually not a good objective measure of how good your sleep is at night, meaning that there could be a lot of opportunity for improved energy and alertness and wakefulness left on the table because you've simply got accustomed to thinking, this 6.5 hours of sleep that I'm getting at night, I think that is enough for me. When if only you gave yourself 7 or 7.25 hours of sleep a night, as long as you're not struggling with insomnia, then all of a sudden you would realize, my goodness, the version of me that I thought was me is actually not me. There is so much more inside of me because when I give myself more sleep, I just feel so much more restored during the day. So you're right in the sense that just thinking that you're doing okay is not really the test of, well, could I be better? And if there is a could I be better possibility, it's adding a little bit more sleep for, let's say, a week or so and just test driving it that way. You can always try that. So absolutely, I love this idea. Try to maybe set an alarm maybe an hour before bed. Try to get into bed 30 minutes earlier. And if you can, get all of your clothes ready, get the coffee machine ready, get everything ready in the morning, and then try to sleep for an additional 15 minutes in the morning. You add 45 minutes, try it for a week, just see if you feel any better.
And if you feel like taking over the world, let us know.
Love it. A long-standing partner of today's podcast is Element, spelled L-M-N-T. Element is a sugar-free electrolyte drink mix, And for me, it was the sugar-free part of that that made me start using it. Gosh, probably 2 years ago now. And here again, by the way, I do buy my own supply just to stay objective. But beyond having the electrolytes in the right balance for human physiology, the other thing that I'm a fan of regarding Element is that it's scientifically backed. If you look up the people who created the company, you'll find some pretty heavy hitting physiology, biochemistry, pharmacology knowledge. All of that's baked into the product. And again, it all comes without the downside of any sugar. And now, since I am such a devotee of their product, and P.S., I really do use them each day. I use it for my workout, and then I use it in my protein shakes. I really do, folks. I really do use it. I badgered them, and they have agreed to give you fine folks an 8-count completely free sample pack with any purchase of Element. And to get that, you do have to use the following link, and that is lmnt.com/Matt Walker. So if you'd like some free product with your purchase, just go to lmnt.com/Matt Walker, and you can pick up your free swag.
All right. Our next question is in the same kind of area of improving sleep. And it is, how can I improve my sleep environment? Which is a great question.
Okay, it is a great question. And probably 4 or 5 things you could do. And I'm sure once we get started, we'll come up with 10. But first obvious one is temperature. The temperature of your bedroom plays a significant role in your sleep quality. We've got the research that cooler environments, actually somewhere around 65, 67 degrees, maybe even cooler, starting at 60 for some people. So a range of maybe 15 to 19 degrees Celsius is optimal for the sleep of most people because it helps your core body temperature drop, which is necessary for both sleep onset and sleep maintenance. And if your room is too hot, but also if your room is too cold, if you're getting closer to 13 degrees Celsius or you're getting down into the kind of mid to low 50s Fahrenheit, then all of a sudden too cold can also disrupt your sleep. So it's a Goldilocks phenomenon. Not too little, not too much, just the right amount, but it's colder than most people think. So temperature. Next one, noise. I would say try to find a way to minimize noise pollution. For most people, that's probably going to be earplugs. If you don't like those foam ones, you can always try these wax earplugs that can help. I don't have any particular company that I can refer you to. I'm not involved in any of those companies, but I would suggest that can be a potential approach to combating that issue.
I really like the silicone ones.
Oh, the silicone ones? I've not tried them yet.
Oh,
Ooh.
they're wonderful. You kind of roll them into a ball and they don't go into the ear canal. They just kind of close the area and they create this vacuum. It's just so quiet. I don't even fly without them anymore. Even kids crying, they're kind of like muffled and I can stay asleep on the plane.
Wait, we've been working together for years and years and years. Now, 2024, only now, you
And
tell me about.
I can even send you the brand that I like.
All right, and maybe we'll link it in the show notes. We're not sponsored by any earplug brand, but okay, so even if ending up you don't enjoy the silicone ones, other people will use noise machines. I'll probably need to do an episode on those at some point. You can use a fan to sort of mask disruptive sounds. Some people will download essentially a noise machine on their phone and they play it throughout the night. Just make sure your phone is plugged in, by the way, because you'll wake up and your phone will be empty in terms of its battery. I've made that mistake before. I would say controlling light exposure, particularly blue light, it can interfere with melatonin production, which is a hormone that regulates the sleep-wake cycle. So try to make your bedroom dark, blackout curtains, covering any electronic displays, avoiding bright lights before bed. All of that will definitely help. So quiet, dim, and cool is where we're at so far. Next, invest in quality bedding. your mattress makes a huge difference. I was just recently traveling and I was at an Airbnb, and the mattress was one of those mattresses that was really soft and really saggy. Oh my goodness. Did I wake up with, I'm giving away my age here, but I woke up with such fantastic back pain, and I was waking up throughout the night. Just invest. Some of us will spend a non-trivial amount on a car, even if it's a very budget, low-level car, relative to the cost that we invest in our mattress. And if you're really unlucky in terms of commuting, maybe you spend 3 hours a day in your car. But if you are even deficient in your sleep, you'll already be sleeping maybe six
Hmm.
hours in your mattress. The trade off between those two doesn't make any sense to invest more in one than the other. But anyway, I digress. I'm so biased. Think about your pillows, think about what works for you, and then probably thinking about breathable natural materials like cotton or linen can help regulate your body temperature and moisture and improve comfort. Next, I think we've already spoken about electronic devices. Try to keep them out of the room. It's just the best way. If you are going to need them, like I do for meditation, strip them of all of the things that activate you. Another thing that came up in a study from the National Sleep Foundation, and it kind of surprised me, and when I tried it, kind of liked it. They were saying that people found the best sleep quality from a bedroom environment and a set of sheets where they had calming scents to them. So, freshly washed sheets or sheets that had these sort of scent sprays placed on them, like lavender, etc., that seemed to promote relaxation and improved quality of sleep. And I think it's one of the reasons when we go to hotels sometimes you get in and the sheets smell fresh and crisp and it's lovely. And you fall asleep because it's relaxing to your nervous system. And there was, I think, a study by, I think it was Lewis, gosh, back 10, 15 years ago. And they were using lavender, and they did find that the lavender scent seemed to statistically significantly, it wasn't huge, but increase the amount of deep slow wave sleep that they were having and reduce the time it took to fall asleep. So I don't think there's vast amounts of data out there to confirm or deny that, but introducing calm scents into your bedroom environment. Other than that, the last thing I would note, and this was particularly important for kids, so this is one for the parents, but also for all of us, organize and declutter. A cluttered room can be mentally stimulating or even cause stress, which seems to interfere with sleep. And we dismiss that so frequently. We just think, oh, that sounds just kind of hokey and not particularly, meaningful. But there were studies that were done in kids where they really decluttered the room, made it nice and calm and tidy and nothing that was activating. It just felt as though the bedroom was neat and there was nothing there other than to signal sleep and relaxation. So that would be the last item I would say. I don't know how many we're up to, maybe 6 there in terms of optimized bedroom environment. Anything to add there, Etty?
One thing that I wanted to add is kind of related to the last point. So, your computer or watches or anything that can kind of trigger and remind you of work or make you stress that you're awake in the middle of the night, I would take that out of the bedroom. I really like that you sometimes talk about having your bedroom as a cave, Matt. I think it's a great analogy, and just don't have anything that would help your brain wake up. Exactly the opposite. You want to just have it really dark and really calm and really quiet. And if you happen to live in a room or go to a hotel that they don't have curtains, just ask for a blanket, an extra blanket, and put it on the windows or buy some blackout curtains. It really makes a difference.
And I've definitely seen, and people have sent me pictures, and I will now do this too. They will take the coat hangers that they're not using in the hotel closet. They are the coat hangers for trousers, for pants. And they've got those little kind of crocodile clips on the bridge between the two ends. And that's what you clip your pants into to hang them up. But then people stand on chairs, safety hazard, number one, and they reach up to the curtains and they pinch them shut, almost like cinching them with these coat hangers so that there is no sliver of light that could come in to your hotel room because they know how sensitive they are to the light. And I'm that way too. So now I always remove them, of course, and I would remove them every day because if one of the cleaning staff would come in to clean my room, I just couldn't live with the embarrassment of them seeing how I dressed the curtains and maybe reporting me to the front desk and getting kicked out. So anyway, that's another suggestion, but I love what you're saying. Absolutely.
Yeah, we were at the point where we scan for Airbnbs and we look at the windows and we're like, do you think there's a blind there? And if there isn't, we're moving on.
Well, what's interesting is that there is now a movement that is occurring called sleep tourism. And this is a movement that is born both out of knowing when you travel. In terms of a hotel experience, they did a survey. I think this was one study from Michael Grandner and maybe Rebecca Robbins, I think, was leading it. They asked of the hotel stay, of all of these different factors, the service downstairs, the restaurant food, the gym, whatever it was, what was the thing that was most impactful for you rating the hotel stay as positive versus negative? By a country mile, how well did I sleep in your hotel?
And when you travel, you're so vulnerable to sleep disruption.
And it can absolutely make that whole trip just you've been saying, I've always wanted to go to, see the pyramids, go to Egypt. And I've been planning this for saving up for the last 5 years. And you go and the trip could have been unbelievably stimulating and exciting, except that you had the worst sleep in that hotel for those 14 days. And it just made it a disaster. And you look at the pictures now and all you think is, God, I look tired in those
so
pictures.
Tired.
And yes. I don't even remember half of that. So anyway, next question.
Before we move on to the next question, there was something you said about mattresses that I found interesting. So do you think that it's a personal preference in terms of having a mattress that's soft or harder? Should people just play around and see what works for them?
I think they can, and I think it is very personal. I would just say, though, that outside of anxiety and insomnia, which those two things are related, and outside of maybe sleep disorders like sleep apnea or restless leg syndrome, skeletal pain, physical pain, is probably the other major factor that will determine good sleep from poor sleep. And if you don't have a supportive mattress, you're going to be in trouble in that regard. In fact, there are mattress companies out there that have different pressure sensors that can augment the pressure in different areas. So when you lie on it and you onboard to those mattresses to begin with through the app, it will say, lie on the mattress, go on your side, on your back, on your front, and it will create a pressure distribution signature of your body form. And then it will create a pressure compensating force with these actuators. So it tries to support and create this perfect firmness signature to stop you having skeletal pain and trying to align your spine flat for as much of the night, rather than a really saggy mattress where you get this big banana-like bowing effect. And that is usually just not going to be a good outcome. So yes, I do think it's individual, but net, on average, I would always say on the firmer side of things rather than the saggy, soft side of things.
That's such a good way to end an episode. But we have one more question.
Go for it. A sponsor of today's show is Inside Tracker, which is a service that comes out to your home and they will analyze your blood and your DNA to know precisely what is going on inside of you. Hence the name Inside Tracker. They look at your blood, your metabolic signals, your hormonal health metrics, and then they give you a personalized, actionable set of lifestyle changes in response to that readout. And the goal there is to improve your health. I was looking and informed they have some new cardiovascular and new hormonal biomarkers that I'm particularly interested in. One that I'm focused on is something called ApoB, which is an absolutely critical heart health measure. And I get it done now with them somewhere between 4 to 6 times a year. Why? Well, my family unfortunately has a strong history of cardiovascular disease, so I am checking that pretty ruthlessly. And by the way, I do buy the product myself out of pocket. I don't want to fall prey to any of those trappings and undue incentives. Although, with full admission, I still use my own discount code that you can use to get some money off. And that code for you is insidetracker.com/Matt Walker. So just go over to insidetracker.com/Matt Walker. And again, if you want to get that discount, it is insidetracker.com/Matt Walker. Thanks very much.
What are the best foods to eat before bed? Say chocolate.
Chocolate, and drumroll, no. I would say that eating the right foods before bed, the data on it is actually not great. We don't have vast amounts of data, but certain nutrients and compounds in foods can promote relaxation and can improve the quality of your sleep. So let's take a look at some of those. I would say tryptophan-rich foods can help improve. It depends, of course, on your eating preferences and habits. Turkey is often cited as having high tryptophan. The only downside is, by the way, just a small proportion of that will actually get into your system, into the brain. But tryptophan can help increase the production of something called melatonin, and that can help promote the healthy timing of your sleep. There are some other things, milk, yogurt, cheese. They can also be rich in tryptophan. You can just search. That's probably why a warm glass of milk before bed traditionally has been a remedy for insomnia. It's not a perfect remedy by any means. But I would say tryptophan-rich foods, number one. Next, there's been some work, and we've done some work in this area too. Complex carbohydrates can increase the availability of tryptophan in the brain and enhance its sleep-promoting effects. So foods like whole grain crackers, oatmeal, sweet potatoes, they're excellent choices. Again, we're not suggesting that you load those up an hour before bed or too close to that, but 2 or 3 hours before bed. Foods that are complex, rich meals with high glycemic indexes, sort of 4 hours before sleep, can help reduce the speed with which you fall asleep. I think it was a study back in 2007 showing that. Next up, probably magnesium-rich foods. I have a love-hate relationship with this whole mantra that magnesium is the holy grail of all good sleep. But if you look at the population stats, maybe 30-40% of people are magnesium deficient. And we certainly know that magnesium deficient individuals don't sleep very well. And when you make them magnesium normative, they start sleeping better. So foods that are high in magnesium, nuts and seeds, almonds, walnuts, pumpkin seeds, all a great source of magnesium. You don't really have to rely on supplementation. Supplementation can be a bit tricky with magnesium. It can really upset your tummy, so just be really careful of that. Leafy greens with your meals in the evening, spinach, kale, those are also high in magnesium. I would say other foods that are rich in melatonin, you can try to take tart cherries and kiwi fruits. There's been a number of studies that have shown they're really helpful for sleep. I've just thought, this is nonsense. Tart cherries and kiwi fruits, are you kidding me? But there's multiple independent studies showing that helps really quite nicely. Herbal teas, data is mixed there. Chamomile tea, valerian root tea. Valerian does seem to have some sedative properties, so I would probably lean into that more so. Chamomile, not so much in terms of direct sleep sort of sedative benefits. It's really about reducing anxiety that chamomile has been demonstrated to do.
Which indirectly would improve your sleep, I guess.
Yeah, that's the assumption, that it has an indirect effect, which is it's not the chamomile that's improving your sleep. It's the chamomile that is removing the roadblock to what would otherwise be good sleep, this thing called anxiety. And then things to avoid, we've already spoken about them. Caffeine, heavy or spicy foods, they're going to cause probably not a great outcome. Eating really close to bed, although it's probably a lot later than you think. You can eat up to an hour before bed and it's not necessarily going to disrupt your sleep, that's very different than saying, but what if I stopped 3 hours? Would that make my sleep incredibly good? That's probably the case. So just be mindful. Gastric reflux can certainly wake you up. Sometimes that gastric reflux, that acid reflux, is waking you up, but you're not aware of those awakenings. And you wake up the next day, you don't feel restored, but you don't remember waking up during the night. And you don't put two and two together that whenever I have a spicy meal, I don't sleep very well. Anything to add?
Actually, a question. So, how can people know about their magnesium levels? Is that something you just ask for a blood test?
Yeah, it is one of those things that you can do a blood test for. Unfortunately, I'm not aware of anything simple like, a finger prick test that you could normally do to assess your blood sugar, your blood glucose. I do think right now, and I'm sure the internet will correct me, that the standard approach to measuring your magnesium levels is a blood draw and then doing a blood assay to look at your magnesium.
So, I think you specifically have to ask for it.
Yeah, it's not usually part of a standard blood panel. No,
Yeah. Wow. I now realize that I don't know if I have enough magnesium.
give it a shot.
That's
We
that's a
will
good thing to
report
know.
in subsequent AMA episodes. I'm going to put you on the hook.
Stay tuned for Etty's magnesium levels. I'm going to sleep even better, Matt. That's amazing.
Any more questions?
Ooh, we have a really good question now. So this is something that I personally am happy that someone asked and not me, but happens to me a lot. Why do I drool in my sleep?
Why do you drool in your sleep?
Why do I drool in my
What a
sleep?
classically brilliant question. When you're in sleep, particularly the deepest stages of sleep, what happens is that the muscles in your body, including those in your face and your mouth, they will relax significantly. And that relaxation firstly causes your mouth to open slightly, and it makes it easier for the saliva to escape. And since you're less conscious during those stages of sleep, you also don't swallow as frequently. And that allows the saliva to pool and potentially escape from your mouth, in part why? Because of the muscle relaxation. So it's really those two reasons that you will sometimes wake up and the entire mass of your cranium is glued to your pillow with rivers of saliva that defy belief. Does that help at all, Etty?
I feel so much better now. I actually notice it
Uh-huh.
more at the most embarrassing situations at a bus or a plane. And I wake up and I'm like, oh my God, what happened here? Disaster.
And sometimes you kind of think, oh, I've got to race through the kitchen. And if you're in a partnership and you kind of come through in the morning and sorry, I'm late for work. I'm just going to grab a coffee. Good morning, darling. How are you? And then you get back in front of the mirror and you're about to grab a shower. And then all of a sudden you look and you've just walked out in front of your significant other. And there is this wonderful, almost slug-like, delightful trail of white, hardened saliva. And at that point, if you had any dignity left, which I don't, it will be
Gone.
stripped from you with a rapidity that is unseen in human history. So anyway,
See, that's what I love about sleep. It's very humbling. It's a humbling
I know
experience.
we can go from evolution all the way to dignity stripping scenarios. Anything else that we have before we leave these good people? Because I'm mindful of taking all of their time.
The next question is a very interesting one, and I never thought about it before. Can you dream of having no dreams? Ha!
This is one of those where I'm teaching a class and someone puts their hand up and you just think, okay, you're the smart Alec in the group. Huh? You're the.
Philosophy is next door. Thank you.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. This is sleep biology and physiology. Overall, the answer is no. I mean, the question touches on a bit of a paradox because it touches on the intriguing nature of dreams and consciousness. The idea of dreaming about not having dreams kind of raises some interesting points about how our brain processes experiences and the awareness of sleep. Overall, though, for the most part, no. In all of the dream studies that are out there and the dream reports that at least I've poured through over my career, I used to do a lot of that stuff back at Harvard. No, we've never seen people reporting dreaming of not dreaming or having no dreams, because by definition, you've just violated it. It's oxymoronic, because a dream defined is any mental activity that we hear from you that you report upon awakening. And if you say that I was dreaming of having no dreams, then that's mental activity. And so you've just had a dream.
Yeah, it's a paradox. It does remind me, though, of sort of false awakening dreams that can feel like they're not dreams.
Oh, that's actually a great, yeah, explain that more. That's a great point. Sorry, good point. Yeah.
You kind of dream that your alarm went off, you got up, you brushed your teeth, you put on your pants, and you kind of got in your car and went to work. And it feels so real, and it even takes like real time, like half an hour. And then suddenly you wake up in bed and you realize that you need to do it all over again because this was just a dream. And in a sense, that can feel like you didn't really dream. You were just kind of reenacting what you're just about to do. And I wonder if that's kind of relatable.
And it's definitely one of those things that is there in the literature. I think even back in just after dream sleep was discovered back in the mid 50s, I think it was already in the mid 60s. Gosh, who was it? It was mid to late 60s. And that was the first time that they saw this sort of false awakening condition, as it were. And yeah, the false awakening, when a person dreams that they have woken up, but they're still in a dream state. And in such a scenario, someone might dream that they are laying in bed awake and not dreaming, only to realize later that this experience was itself a dream. I suppose that, yeah, you're right. That could be interpreted as dreaming about not having dreams. Good point. I give up my stance. I think that that's a great demonstration of when you could argue that that's the case.
I actually remember a false awakening dream from when I was a kid. I think I was 12. I had a dream of my entire kind of school day. And I was so depressed to realize that I have to get up and do it all over again because it felt so real. I was even bored at school. I might even fallen asleep at class during my dream.
Isn't that the worst
It's the
experience?
worst. It's the worst.
Yeah, I'm sure some people out there think, okay, I just dreamt that I've just finished my shift at work and I'm on the way home and I'm going to go to my favorite takeout place to get my favorite food. All of a sudden, only to wake up to the sound of the alarm and you've got to get changed to start your shift. And you just think, oh,
Yes.
no,
Very depressing.
yeah. Well, on that delightful upbeat bombshell, we conclude this next AMA episode. Folks, thank you so much for joining us. We clearly, you can see, we have far too much fun recording these. We love these types of questions, love these particularly action-based questions, not just what is sleep doing, but what can I do to get better sleep? Love the bonus, funny, quirky questions too. Keep those coming as well. Send all of your AMA questions out to me or to Etty on social media. You can find me on Twitter at Sleep Diplomat. You can find me on Instagram, Dr. Matt Walker. So DrMattWalker. And Etty, give out your socials as to where people can find you.
At Etoosh, Etoosh, at Twitter. And you can also send me an email. It's etoosh@gmail.com.
Wonderful. Etty, thank you again for being such a superstar co-pilot in all of this. And folks, thank you again for listening. If you are enjoying the show, don't worry about all of that stuff as like clicking subscribe and liking and giving a 5-star review. That's wonderful. My team will kill me for saying this every time, which I do. I don't care about any of that stuff. The only thing I would ask, if you would be so kind, is if you're enjoying it, share it with other people. Just getting the sleep word out there is all that we ask. So thank you again. Take care, sleep well, and bye for now.